Good Wednesday evening, Bahamas. I'm Altaviz Munnings.
And I'm Candino Knowles. The College of the Bahamas Union of Students marched to the Ministry of Education today to hear what Minister Jerome Fitzgerald had to say about a proposed tuition hike by the College Council.
Last week, senior administrators at the higher education institution recommended to the council a tuition increase of $25 per credit. And as Charisma Robinson tells us tonight, that's something the student union body is against.
The Bahamas Union of Students says the proposed increase would negatively impact students who are already struggling to fund their education, and it appears as if the education minister agrees to a certain extent. Following that meeting, Mr. Jerome Fitzgerald said he does not believe any recommendations to increase fees at COB would get support around the cabinet table, given the current economic climate.
At the end of the day, to increase the fees may at the end of the day just result in us having to actually give more subvention to cover those fees.
Furthermore, Mr. Fitzgerald says he made it quite clear to the students that the government has no intentions on making adjustments to the education budget that would negatively impact the student body or the delivery of education.
But it does not mean that we in the Ministry of Education do not pick up the challenge from the Ministry of Finance, understanding the financial constraints, that we have to find ways to be more efficient from an operations standpoint and from an organizational standpoint. But at the end of the day, we're waiting for the report from the College Council to tell us what their plan is moving forward and whether or not they are able to find any savings.
So here's what he believes can help save cost.
What I'm doing in the ministry is what will be happening in every ministry throughout the Commonwealth, where ministers will be going through their budget line by line, looking to see areas where they can save costs. And it may mean, as I said, if you have leases and you have building space available, you can consolidate people. That it may mean cutting back on some areas like that. Electricity is a big issue. Phones are a big issue. Photocopying, those are big line items where we can find ways to, the rental of photocopies is what I'm talking about.
Meantime, representatives of COBA say they are somewhat satisfied with that meeting with the minister today. They say, though, when it comes to issues that could negatively impact students at the college, they will not be silenced.
We here in the College of the Bahamas Union of Students know what it is we go through, we know what we experience, and we know for a fact that it's important to get your message across to the individuals who are responsible to us. The individuals who are employed, whether legally or financially, to do the work that is entrusted within this higher education institution.
If we are to be affected by such a proposal, then we should be involved with the actual drafting of such. That needs to happen. We are the reason this college exists.
Now, COBAs will be releasing the details of that meeting today to the student body. They will also be discussing the way forward. Charisma Robinson, ZNS Network News.
Thanks so much, Charisma. Meantime, Education Minister Jerome Fitzgerald giving an update on that mold situation over at the Anatole Rogers High School. Last week, teachers engaged in a two-day sit-in in protest of health problems as a result of smoke, mold, and other environmental hazards.
I went to Anatole Rogers yesterday with the Ministry of the Environment, technical people and persons from my ministry. We inspected all of the areas there that were of concern, and I was satisfied yesterday that those matters have either been addressed or in the process of being addressed to our satisfaction and to the Ministry of Environment satisfaction. There are some recommendations that they made, the Ministry of Environment that is, they made to ensure that the sort of challenges we have with mold don't reoccur. And we took those recommendations seriously, and we are making adjustments with the staff and custodial staff to ensure that we do what all we can responsibly to make sure that doesn't happen again.
In business news tonight, the much-anticipated Bahamas International Investment and Business Forum opened in Grand Bahama this morning at the Grand Lucine Resort. The conference is sponsored by the Bahamas government, the Commonwealth Business Council, and the Grand Bahama Port Authority Limited. Discussions
taking place over the next 2 days will focus on areas inclusive of opportunities for investors, maritime industries, regional integration, and trade and financial services. Jimmy DeSwain was in Grand Bahama today for the opening, which attracted business investors from around the world.
An injection of foreign direct investment into the sluggish Grand Bahama economy, as well as the Bahamas, is what organizers of the Bahamas International Investment and Business Forum hope to accomplish. More than 280 delegates from 27 countries across the region and the world will converge on Grand Bahama over the next 2 days to learn more about the Bahamas as a global investment destination of choice. Prime Minister Perry Christie says there are a number of opportunities available. We just have to go after them.
Grand Bahama has 30,000 acres of arable land right here. So agriculture could do it. Grand Bahama had killed people who could establish the fact that $250 million a year is spent on souvenirs and handicraft. So where's the souvenirs and handicraft? The linkages. It must go beyond talk. What is it that we have to do? Port Authority and government must go beyond talk. Let's do it.
Chairman of the Grand Bahama Port Authority, Ian Fair, says Grand Bahama is filled with investment opportunities, and the conference is one way to get the word out.
We've got world-class operations here. And I'll give you one example, the shipyard. I mean, we've had a global recession where almost every industry in the world and every country in the world got itself into deep trouble and had to retrench. The shipyard actually substantially increased its business during the recession. So we've got success stories here. We need to get out there and shout about them.
Chairman of the Commonwealth Business Council, Dr. Mohan Kaul, says the conference has already attracted several investors who are looking to make the Bahamas its base of operations in the region.
British companies who are looking at setting up port operations. I mean, it's manufacturing operations where port will be a major area for transportation exports. And second is related to what the Prime Minister said on registration of cruise ships and other ships.
It is hoped that at the end of this investment forum, there will be major investment opportunities not only for Grand Bahama, but for the Bahamas as a whole. Jimmy DeSwain, ZNS Network News.
The Urban Renewal Commission on the defensive today, following statements made yesterday by members of the Bain and Grantstown East Advisory Board over accountability and the handling of funds.
Andrew Knowles tells us that the commission isn't taking those comments lightly, maintaining that transparency and integrity are its watchwords.
That's what I was.
Never once have my integrity been in question or my accountability. And certainly at this point in my life, I will not sit here and allow anyone to impugn my character. Nobody.
Urban Renewal co-chair Cynthia Pratt sets the record straight and responds to statements of the Bain and Grantstown East Advisory Board, which she says contain subtle allegations of corruption.
Every penny can be accounted for through Urban Renewal program. All that we have collected can be accounted for.
So far, a total of $76,500 have been received from donors. And co-chair Algernon Allen says there are more donors waiting to give.
These funds were directed to the Urban Renewal Band in the main. Over $40,000 have been expended. They're trying to put in place a 600-strong band by the independence, the 40th celebration of our independence. There are lined up an array of local and international donors biting at the bit to give, to cooperate, and to help us in this noble and Christian task of ours.
And by setting the record straight, the commission is hopeful that it doesn't affect future contributions. Also in attendance was Advisory Board member Canon Basil Tynes, who thanked the co-chairs for bringing some clarity to the issues.
I'm sure that all of us will keep on working. We haven't ironed out all of the issues as yet, but I can guarantee you one sure thing, that what I've seen, what I've heard, I know for myself it has answered quite a number of questions for me. And I thank you for inviting me here today. That's why I'm sitting here between the two of them. Yes. Okay? Because I think it's only fair that when you get answers, you got to be brave enough to stand up with the same people who you've been asking questions about and from.
Now, the commission noted that both Bain and Grantstown advisory boards have been joined. Both agree that the amalgamation will encourage unity of the community. Andrew Knowles, ZNS Network News.
CARICOM leaders have ended 2 days of talks on crime and security in Haiti, calling the discussions successful.
And leaders shared ideas on how best to deal with the surge of crime affecting Caribbean countries. But primarily, they adopted 14 recommendations from their national security ministers, which they feel will assist in putting a dent in crime.
Opal Roach traveled with the Bahamian delegation and has this report.
Crime and the fear of crime are now making a major impact and a very negative impact on our way of life.
That's why regional leaders gathered in Haiti to tackle the vexing crime issue as communities are being destroyed by this menace. Now, there are some recommendations which they feel will assist in reducing crime. They include beefing up Border Patrol, crushing gangs, implementing positive youth programs, judicial reform, and training for prosecutors. National Security Minister the Honorable Bernard Nottage, who headed talks on crime and security, feels moving in this direction could only be beneficial for all.
The strategies appear to be very workable ones, and the anticipation is that we are able to turn them into success on our streets.
Now, CARICOM statistics show that children at the age of 12 are associated with gangs or they have been exposed to weapons. And because of this, leaders are targeting the younger ones to steer them away from a life of crime.
For example, in my area in Baintown on the weekend, we had a basketball tournament, and I asked the young people there, how many of them have seen a gun? Everybody put their hand, and then they remembered and they put their hand down. But the fact is, they see guns. Young people tell me that many of them take knives and daggers to school because they're being intimidated and bullied by older boys, maybe the same age but older nevertheless. And so these are things that we have to know, because there's no use of fighting it when they're 18 years old and they're dropping out of school. We need to deal with it very early on.
Now, with guns the weapon of choice in a number of murders in the Bahamas and the Caribbean, Prime Minister the Right Honorable Perry Christie has expressed a concern about the infiltration of guns into the region. He addressed this issue with U.S. Attorney General Eric Holder.
And I argued that the Americans could and should do more, even though we all acknowledged that they were making a significant contribution. But when it comes to crime, I indicated that it was a fundamental right of peoples of the region, and most certainly the Bahamas, to have safety and security, and that governments cannot consider compromising on this issue. And whatever level of resources we have, we must not hesitate to dedicate those resources to hopefully a successful outcome in our fight against crime.
And now that the high-powered meetings on crime and security have ended, and despite some disagreements at times, all regional leaders agree that crime is a big problem, and it takes a joint effort to fix it. In Port-au-Prince, Haiti, I'm Opal Roach, ZNS Network News.
The Ministry of Financial Services, in collaboration with the Central Bank, the Securities Commission, the Inspector of Financial and Corporate Service Providers, and the Compliance Commission, issued a survey to assess the industry's readiness for the United States Foreign Account Tax Compliance Act, or FATCA. The survey examines the preparations by foreign financial institutions and also provides the government an estimate of the costs for financial and human resources which will be incurred to become FATCA compliant by Bahamian financial sector firms. FATCA was signed into U.S. law in 2010 through the U.S. Hiring Incentives to Restore Employment Act. It came into effect on January 1st, 2013, and FATCA has the effect of requiring foreign financial institutions to report certain account information to the United States Internal Revenue Services, or the IRS, for persons considered U.S. residents for tax purposes.